with Ryan.
Today we are learning basketball with Ku Khahil, host of Locked On Pistons. Find him on Substack. Covers the Detroit Pistons. He was just in the building last night for Pistons Knicks, a little NBC Peacock game. Potential Eastern Conference Finals preview with the top two seeds in the East. And the Pistons just kind of blew the doors off them. It was pretty cool to see, and there was a lot of credit to the team collective. It can be a little cliche, but a lot of credit to just the full team effort in that one. And you know what? I'm excited to dive into kind of what went into that team effort and the win itself and this incredible season for the Pistons, first in the East, second best record overall. And we'll dig into all the stats. But how you doing today, Ku?
Doing good. It was a great night to watch basketball yesterday. The Pistons completely destroyed the Knicks, so that's always fun to see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about this crazy good season from the Pistons.
Oh man, I was looking it over right before we hopped on here. Last time we had you on the pod, the Pistons were a little closer to 500 maybe, but that was like, you know, a big step in the right direction, just kind of finding their footing around Cade and this new offense. They had finally found some shooters and really just it resembled an NBA rotation around Cade finally, I think was the big one. And then you made sure to underline and credit Jalen Duren's big development last season as well. Obviously, Ausar Thompson's breakout with his defense. And they've just taken another leap as a unit this year. 27-9. We just mentioned first in the East, second best record overall, third best point differential, ninth on offense, second on defense. What would you say is kind of the story of this Pistons season so far?
Yeah, I think the story of the season is that you're seeing a very deep team full of players that all contribute, and the Pistons being able to throw 6, 7, 8, 9 bodies at you that can just wear you down throughout an entire game. There's been a lot of complaints at times about how many players the Pistons are playing. A lot of people, including myself at times, feel like they play too many guys. I feel like you could maximize your best players even more. But yesterday against the Knicks, you saw it, like Javonte Green comes in and has been absolutely sensational for them this year. Like no one thought, at least I didn't think he was going to be this good this for the Pistons. I thought he was going to be an end-of-bench guy, and he's been absolutely fantastic for them this year. Paul Reed, I think, is maybe like the third best big in the league, and probably if I was Paul Reed, I'd be wanting out to go be a consistent backup somewhere because he's too good to just be sitting on the bench all the time. So you got those guys who don't even play, who's not even like the main parts of the rotation. And then you got Marcus Sasser, who the other night comes in, drops 25, doesn't play this game. You got Danny Shankins, who scores 21 in a game 3 games ago, didn't play. So it's just like they have so many guys that they can just throw at you. And obviously the improvements of the young guys are the story. I'm sure we'll get into that. But like how deep the team is of just like they call them dogs here. Just tryhards, basically. It's like, and I mean that by the most like complimentary way. That they have so many guys who are just tryhards who are going to go out there and absolutely give their everything, every single possession. And it just wears on teams. And teams don't like to deal with it, especially as the game goes on. I mean, in the third quarter, the Pistons, it seemed like they took the will of the Knicks at that point. They didn't want no parts of what the Pistons were doing. And that's happened multiple times this season.
Yeah, and part of it is the defensive culture, I think, that stands out most about this team. I mean, second best defense, first at forcing tough shots with shooting efficiency, second at forcing turnovers, average at defensive rebounding, and actually, 30th or second to last, depending on the stat you look at, fouling on defense. So what I find is interesting is it, like you said, these dogs kind of mentality, this hectic defense, this swarming defense, forcing tough shots, forcing turnovers, rebounding at an average rate, but also fouling. And that doesn't seem to like take away from what they're doing. Like it's not so much of a negative. It's one of those like classic coaching things where if you're making mistakes by playing too hard, those are the type of mistakes we'll take. And it's not hurting the defense, I think, is what's most impressive, that they're still able to just essentially be the best defense in the league, right up there with the Thunder and the Rockets in all the ratings. Obviously, the Thunder are, all-time type defense, but still, the Pistons are playing at this incredible rate. Is there any one player, or maybe it's the coach with, his Bickerstaff's impact and the culture he's built, but, who do you credit the most for that defensive culture to start with?
Yeah, I think JB obviously has to get a large part of it. Like JB and Trajan Langdon both came into this team after a 20-game losing streak, and they set the tone and set the foundation of what this team was going to be. So I think you have to give them credit off the top. I am probably Ausar Thompson's biggest fan. I am the biggest believer in him being a star one day. And after January 1st last year, when he was inserted to the starting lineup, I said over and over and over on every podcast, I did it nonstop, that once he was put into the starting lineup, they played at a 50-win pace, and they had the second best defense in the NBA. Once he was inserted into that starting lineup, he completely warped what they were. December, they started to play a little better. Everyone remembers Jaden Ivey hitting that game winner against the Kings and having this like explosion as a scorer. But in the month of December, they were actually the 29th ranked defense. I remember recording a podcast at the end of December that month for Locked On Pistons saying, yeah, they're getting more wins. Their offense is looking better, but I think this might be a little fluky because they were like 16th in net rating. Their defense was horrible. And I was like, this is a fluky run. If they don't improve their defense, they're not going to be able to continue to score at this margin, and they're going to end up start losing games. Like, I don't think this is some big improvement. Then Ausar comes back from blood clots. He gets put in the starting lineup on January 1st, and the rest of the way, all of a sudden, they go from one of the worst defenses in the NBA to one of the best in the league. And now having him from the jump this year, instead of having to wait till January, having him from the jump, I think is by far the biggest impact. Having that, I think, the best perimeter defender in the NBA, one of the most versatile defenders in the league on the team from the get-go, I think has been the biggest reason why they've been so good out the gate. Then you get to Isaiah Stewart, who I think is behind Wemby. I think he has an argument for the best defensive big in the league, right? I know Wemby's at the top. He's by far and away the craziest defensive player maybe I've ever seen in my life. But like after that, it's Stu, and Stu has been absolutely sensational. Him and Stu carrying this defense and this identity has been revolutionary to watch, man. Like yesterday against the Knicks, even when Jalen Brunson felt like he got a step on Ausar is just so quick, so alien-like athleticism with crazy wingspan that even when you feel like you get a step on him, he's able to catch back up and then just poke the ball away. You get a steal. Or on the times you actually do maybe get a step on him, now you got Stu waiting at the rim to send your shot back to half court. Like it's a living hell for teams to go through. And then it just goes from then on. Trajan brought in Javonte Green, who's a dog on the defensive end. You got Paul Reed, who's giving it his all every time he plays. You've seen improvements from Jalen Duren on the defensive end. I think he's really enjoyed having Ausar in front of him and playing with Stu more this year. They went to the double bigs a lot. So Duren's improved a little bit defensively. And then obviously the other wing defender in Ron Holland. Oh, Ausar comes out the game. Well, now you just got Ron Holland bothering you for 94 feet. So it's just like, it truly is like a living hell for teams to go against. And the NBC broadcast asked Cade about this after the game. He was like, I think it was actually one of the Pistons beat writers asked him in the locker room. They were like, is there any part of you like feels bad for Jalen Brunson that like as soon as Ausar comes out the game, he has to do it with Ron, and then when Ron comes out, it's Ausar or Javonte? Like, does any part of you feel bad? And he was like, absolutely not. So like it's hell over here.
Man, it's just one defender after another. It's that LeBron meme, seeing Kawhi come in, looking over his shoulder, and get just, of course, this guy's back in, another defender you got to deal with. And I'm glad we were gonna talk a little more about Ausar later anyway, but I'm glad you brought him up because, like you said, just to highlight two stats for Ausar and Beef Stew. Ausar is tied for 7th in defensive EPM on dunks and threes for individual defensive impact. And Beef Stew has the most blocks of any bench player for the second straight season. So like you said, just holding down the rim protection. And as a team, the defense is number 1 in blocking shots, number 3 in forcing steals, while number 2 in fouls. But they're just forcing so many deflections that it just doesn't seem to matter. Like you said last night, Beef Stew caught, I forget if it was Brunson, but he had a mean chase down block, just timed up the block perfectly from behind. You pair like you have one elite defensive anchor in Ausar Thompson already out there, a big wing. It reminds me, this isn't a direct comp, but it reminds me of a healthy peak Jonathan Isaac back with Aaron Gordon and Vucevic, where he was like just a one-man defense. Like he's a big wing. He can shut down your best guard, shut down your best forward, guard your big man too. and guard everyone, but also protect the rim. Just do everything. Incredible defensive instincts with that peak athleticism. And that's where Ausar's at right now, where Amen gets a little more of the credit, I'm sure, with some of the explosive plays and on the exciting Houston team. But, Ausar's making the same kind of noise now with just as much team success for Detroit. And like you said, the team is just, on another level when he's out there, especially with the starters. Beyond
if I could just add something real quick to that, is that like you brought up how they have so many deflections, they have so many blocks and forcing turnovers. One of the things that like stands out, and this is something I've learned, like when I was probably like 18, I probably didn't think about this at all. Like I was dumb at that point. But like as I've learned, like there's a difference between like there are some defenses that are just sound defenses, are really good because they're just sound and they don't make many mistakes. The Pistons are not only sound, they were just locked in yesterday, but they are full. Like everyone thinks of offensive playmakers. The Pistons have defensive playmakers where they are making plays. They are causing havoc. It's not just contesting shots, getting boards. Now you're getting out in your offense. It's we're deflecting the ball. We're getting steals. We're getting blocks. We are creating plays with our defense. Everyone thinks of creating plays on the offensive end of the floor. Stu, Ausar, Ron, those guys create plays on the defensive end of the floor. So it's a little unorthodox. It's not how maybe like the casual fan would think about it, but that's what makes the Pistons special. Most teams are creating plays offensively. The Pistons create plays defensively, and it's what makes them so hard to play.
Right. And, it's reminiscent of a football team where the term playmaking, means different things in different sports. And, on the defensive side of football, that's exactly what it means, is making the play, reading the defense, forcing turnovers with interceptions. And, to that point, in translating it back to basketball and how Detroit scores to begin with, similar, obviously I cover the Magic, so it reminds me of some ways that the Magic find easy ways to score, and any team, but you force turnovers and you create transition opportunities. And, one way, or really a big thing for the Pistons offense by the numbers, is their paint touches. They get to the paint like crazy. They're second in paint touch points, sixth in post-up points, third in fast break points, 17th, which is about average in drive points. So an emphasis on getting to the paint one way or another. They draw the third most free throws as a team, despite second worst free throw percentage, but just creating those efficient shots just helps boost their offensive efficiency and impact. They shoot the third least volume of threes, but they convert it at an average rate. And they're really good at offensive rebounding and putbacks, third in total rebounding, third in offensive rebounding, fifth in total putbacks. What do you credit? And we kind of just hit on a lot of it with the defense. Is it just the defense, or is it also, to bring it back to Cade, is this also where, the impact of Cade can kind of be seen in the half court combined with, the defense, the nonstop north-south force of defense creating your offense?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into more about Cade a little later, but yeah, Cade is a big part of it. He's improved in so many different areas. Like I just recorded a podcast like a week and a half ago talking about how everyone's going to look at Cade and be like, oh, the numbers look similar to last year. Yeah, a little bit more, but it's kind of similar to last year. And I'm here to tell everyone he is like leaps and bounds a better basketball player than last year. Last year, I think he was like like maybe 12 to 15th ranked player. And like, I think that's probably where a lot of people would have him. He was third team All-NBA. I know some injuries happened. So somewhere like in the teens, mid-teens is if I think people probably have him. I think this year he's been like a top 7 player in the league. I think he has made so many jumps and improvements in his game. So I think that's part of it, his ability to get to the basket. But they've seen improvements and have really encouraged aggressiveness from Jalen Duren. His self-creation and his ability to get downhill has been, we saw flashes of it last year, and we've seen flashes of it throughout his career, but now it's not flashes. It's every game. It's consistent. Him going ISO, them running inverted pick and rolls for him getting downhill, Euro step, hook shot, post fade. Like his footwork has been so improved. So now he's consistently touching the paint from the 5 position, which is rare. It's not something that you usually see from a lot of bigs. So he's able to get to the paint and consistently get paint touches. Then you got Ausar Thompson, who you brought up the free throw attempts and being second worst free throw shooting team. A lot of that is due to Ausar. Like Ausar has the highest free throw rate of his career. For a good like month and a half there, he was nearing like a 50% free throw rate. Like he was almost drawing a free throw every single time he drove. Problem was he was shooting 54% on these free throws, career worst. So, like, as he gets better, as he gets back to where, I mean, even if he got back to the 64% from last year, that would completely change his efficiency and the team's efficiency. But Duren's getting downhill and drawing fouls. Ausar is getting downhill and drawing fouls. Cade's drawing fouls at a historic, or not historic weight for him, I should say, like a career high for him by far. Free throw attempts per 100, he's at 9.8. That's by far a career high for him. He's gotten so much better at drawing contact, seeking contact, finishing through contact. So you got Cade getting downhill, you got Duren getting downhill, you got Ausar getting downhill. Then you got Dennis Jenkins, who has done a really great job when he's had to play. But I would attribute it most to those three guys. And then when you have guys who like getting downhill, and then you also have two incredible offensive rebounders for their position in Duren and Ausar, like I often talk about in my podcast, that anytime Ausar drives to the rim and he gets a shot up, even if he misses, it's a good attempt. It's good for the Pistons. Because most likely, if he's missing, it's because the big's rotating and contesting a shot. And now Duren's just put back dunking every time. It's the same thing for Duren. Anytime Duren drives, I mean, Ausar's probably one of the best offensive rebounders for his position. It's probably him and his brother. And as soon as Duren gets a shot on the glass, Ausar's there and he's going to put it back. Ausar misses his own shot, he's putting it back. Same thing with Duren. Duren misses his own shot, he might be putting it back. Like the other night, Ausar hit a dagger on a putback layup. So the Pistons have guys that just love getting to the paint. And then they also have guys who are incredible offensive rebounders for their position. So even when they miss a shot and you think that, oh, we got to stop, here comes an alien athlete in Ausar or Jalen Duren swarming through the air to get another second chance opportunity for him. And that's not even hitting on when Stu comes into the game and he's fighting for offensive rebounds. So it's just, they have a clear identity that all these guys are buying into.
Right. And, when you have that elite offensive rebounding option with the putbacks, that, just getting a shot on the rim is a good look because, like you said, you're probably drawing the help defender and creating that offensive rebound and putback look. And when you have two guys that can put the ball on the floor and drive and get to the hole and also do the putback on the other side, it's a nice counter, especially just untraditional for a big man, especially like Duren. And I'm glad you highlighted him and glad to hear that his development is continuing to be just a huge part of this success because, like, his dynamic big man face-up game, I think, is very, if not unique, it's very rare, especially for his position. And, being a handoff hub to also be a downhill scoring hub, I mean, it's just super impressive and maybe a little underrated aspect. That was kind of what I was getting at. Is he kind of the unsung hero of this team's success? And you've said a lot of names that could also probably take a little share of that.
Yeah, I think Jalen Duren, I mean, this last week and a half of stretch, they went on a 5-game Western road trip, and then the first game back on New Year's, that was their stretch of not looking the same, not playing well. I believe they were 3-3 over that stretch. But for young teams going out west for a long trip, those are always tough. And JB talked about it at practice that he felt like that really took an effect on them. They weren't able to practice and guys were tired. So I didn't want to overreact to that stretch. The reason why I bring that stretch up is because before that stretch, the Pistons had around a 13th ranked half-court offense. And last year, they were one of the worst half-court teams in the league. They feasted completely on transition looks, completely on fast breaks, second chance. That's completely where they relied upon. They were not a very good half-court team. I believe in the playoffs last year, they were the worst half-court offense in the NBA or in the playoffs. And that's where they needed to improve on. So Cade's made improvements. That has helped that. But I think probably the main reason why they're half-court offense, right now I believe they're like 17th, 18th, but I think that number will go back up towards the top 10 as they get farther away from this recent stretch of play on that road trip. As they get back to it, I think one of the biggest reasons is Jalen Duren. I mean, for the majority of the year, I mean, I was like, it was every week I was tweeting this number out that he was, according to Synergy on his drives, he's drove the ball 63 times this year, according to Synergy. He's scoring 1.19 points per possession per drive. And he's drawing a free throw 30% of the time. So even when he doesn't finish, he's drawing free throws. And for a long stretch, he was shooting like 80% from the free throw line as well. So there was a stretch where he was like at 1.3 points per possession. He was like rivaling like Giannis type. It was like crazy for what he was doing. So the fact that they had someone else within the half court who could catch the ball in the short roll and then attack downhill, not just utilize his passing, which he can do, but now he can catch the ball in the short roll and just attack to the rim and just dunk on you, finish at the rim. It was just crazy to see. You're starting to see defenses change how they guard him now. Now they're not trapping Cade as much because they don't want to put Jalen Duren in the short roll. They don't really want to tag with a smaller defender because he can just overpower him. So you're seeing less traps. seeing more switches, which is leading to Cade isoing more and him having his best isolation season of his career. So you're seeing defenses trying to counter now because of what Jalen Duren has brought to the offense. So there's been a lot of talk about the Pistons needing like this second shot creator, and I agree. But in the meantime, they have kind of found some of that with Duren, who's doing a great job of bringing that like second offensive score, offensive creator within the half court. And that's what the team needed. And he's probably the biggest, I mean, it's Cade, but then after that, he's probably the biggest reason after that for why the half court offense has taken another jump. I mean, so far this year, it's small sample, but 41 possessions in isolation, he's in the 83rd percentile. Like he's just been, as a pick and roll ball handler, when they use these inverted pick and rolls, 93rd percentile. Like he's been tremendous. And he has made, if you looked at the player he was now to last year, it's completely different. He is so much better than he was a year ago. It's crazy to see.
Man, that's what you want to see is the quick development arc and the quick development path in general, and it's just super impressive with his skill set, what he's been able to do, you want to see him get kind of rewarded for that. I don't know if there's any buzz for like a second All-Star with how much Detroit is winning, but maybe a little nod in some of the votes there. And you mentioned a second creator. I know Tobias has been hurt. I was wondering how the fit has looked with Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert, and kind of some rotating pieces with, I guess you would say like the 3-point shooters, the closeout attackers around Cade have kind of rotated a little bit from year to year. And I'll throw Jaden Ivey in there too, because I'm really interested in him physically, how he looks ever since his return from injury. Like, does he have his explosiveness back? The way it appears is he's hitting his threes at the very least, and in theory that will open up the rest of the game if he's fully healthy. But does he look like peak Jaden Ivey at the moment?
Jaden Ivey's a very hot rod of a topic in the community. Very divisive. This is I've never been big on Jaden Ivey. I've probably been one of his biggest skeptics. However, I will say this. Last year, he shot near 40% from the three-point line. A lot of that I felt like was because of how great he shot in the final 5 games. He was shooting like 58%. So I was skeptical coming into this year. And I was like, was it a hot stretch, or is he actually this improved as a shooter? We do now have, I think it's close to like 50-something games of him being a really good three-point shooter. So that's very good to see. It looks like he's, like you said, at the very least, it looks like he is a very respectable three-point shooter. And you could probably say even a very good three-point shooter. That's probably the area in which I was I probably undersold him quite a bit in the offseason when it came to his three-point shooting. So I do want to give him that credit. The problem is, I think, and I guess it's not a problem. I take that back. It's not a problem. But what I would say is, so many people and coming into the year, we heard it even the Pistons, that people wanted him to be the secondary guy. They wanted him to be the number 2 to Cade, the Robin, the secondary scorer. And that's where I gave the biggest pushback, because I never thought we saw at any point throughout his career that he was this secondary ball handler, that he was this ISO one-on-one primary ball handler type. He's always been a really good player off ball. So coming into this year, I feel like you're kind of just seeing that emphasized, and the role in which they have him in right now, coming off the bench, he is getting more threes up than any other point of his career. I think like nearly 50% of his shots are threes. Like, so they've taken the ball out of his hands almost completely. They're not asking him to create for himself. And it's leading to some of his most efficient basketball. It's leading to him fitting really well into a role off this bench where he's asked to come in, get a bunch of threes up. If you can get out in transition, do your thing. But outside of that, we don't really need you to create. We just want you to feast off of another point guard. That's why you're seeing him play with Cade. You're seeing him play with Dennis. You're seeing him play with Marcus Sasser, because they've been having him play off ball, and he's played, I think, especially as he's gotten ramped up, really well within that role. When it comes to his on-ball stuff, he's not beating guys off the dribble like he once did. He's getting walled off quite a bit. Even in this Knicks game yesterday, he hit like 3 mid-range jump shots, which was great to see. His touch is looking better. If he can hit mid-range shots, I mean, that would be great. But all of those mid-range jump shots came off of him trying to get downhill in a straight line drive, and he got walled off, and he had to go into a step back. So it doesn't feel like he's the same getting downhill It doesn't seem like he's creating that same type of separation that he did like even last year. I'm sure it'll look better the farther away he gets from the injury. I'm not saying it won't. But I say all that to say, like, if your expectation, if you are accepting of Ivy of being this guy off the bench who is going to be used as like this microwave option where he comes in, he gets a bunch of threes up, he can score 11 in like 12 minutes when he hits like 3 threes and draws, gets to the rim and transition, whatever. If that's what your role is for Ivy, I think he's actually played really well within that role. I think he's fit into it. I think he's bought into it. I actually think he's doing fine in that. If your expectation is 25 a game next to Cade Cunningham, this pick and roll ball handler, this second side creator for the Pistons that they desperately need, I think it's clear that he just isn't that. That's not the type. I don't feel like he ever was that player, but I think even more so now, he's just not that guy. So it just depends on what you're willing to accept him to be. And if you can accept him as this guy off the bench who plays the role he's playing right now, he's actually impacting the team well. Like, he's playing well in his minutes. They're winning his minutes when he does this. So it just comes down to what your expectations are for him.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way to think about it, especially just with the difference in roles, because I've definitely thought of him, let's say, maybe in the long-term team building wise, closer to the bigger expectations that you hit on. But like you said, if a lot of that relies on, let's say, the quick first step burst being an outlier skill advantage for him that always has been. But if he's getting walled off now and not quite that same explosiveness, he can't rely on that advantage creator quite as much. But, like you said, maybe it's still an advantage creator attacking closeouts and in more of an off-ball role, spreading the floor. And, if that 3-point shot has always been a little streaky, but if now that it's, much more of a consistent weapon, that changes the game for him. And
I'd like him to even get more threes up. If there's going to be this, like, if he's coming off the bench and he's going to shoot this well, like, I'd like to see him get like 6, 7, 8, like, be the volume 3-point shooter the team needs if he's shooting 40%.
Yeah, and 46% of his shots are threes at the moment for his 3-point rate. So clearly getting them up. But it's almost in my mind almost overqualified for this 6th, 7th man role that makes him that much more impactful at the moment. And that's kind of the give and take with finding your perfect role, and really maybe not the perfect role, but just getting the maximum impact out of a guy within his role in a certain team, especially a winning situation like this. Like that you just have to kind of take one for the team sometimes and give. And Michael Porter Jr. just kind of talked about this in a good quote, and kind of his relationship with how he played with Denver, trying to take one for the team and maybe not show off all he can do versus more of the tough shots he's taking in Brooklyn being tougher shots, but things he's always been capable of. And, as a player, a top 5 pick or top 6 pick or type of talent, you believe in yourself and you want to see those opportunities, and injuries stink and you get zapped a little bit and you're not quite yourself. So it's a lot of things to juggle, I think, mentally with your own expectations and maybe how fans talk about you, view you. Things change fast. So you being able to go with the flow kind of and accept your role and thrive in it like he has, is just, all he can really do. And, if he thrives in this role this season, he's still very young, only 23 years old. Like, who's to say he can't continue to develop and round out his game in some of the other ways that, I definitely still kind of think he can be, but it always feels like there's been an injury that zapped him a little bit as soon as he gains a little momentum every other season. Maybe that's just from afar, but that always seems to be. But I'm rooting for him either way. And, part of it also, I think, is like you're hitting on here with the depth of talent, just the compound effect. Like from a defensive perspective, when you start with Ausar Thompson as your defensive anchor, like you have this elite world stopper one-man defense, it becomes like a compound effect when you throw another elite defender like a Beef Stew or another, borderline elite one in Ron Holland or in his prospect status. Like, would you say long-term, in terms of some of the prospects that, everyone's pretty young. Duren's only 22, Cade's only 24. I was going to say, what do you think of Ron Holland and even Sasser too? Like, do you think he's actually an older player, even though he's less experienced, 25. But how do they fit into the long-term core of this team? Some of the guys that are maybe on the edge of the bench now, but might be able to carve out a role next to Cade.
Yeah, and I just want to say quickly one last thing on Ivy. You brought up something there that I think is really important for him. Before the year, he wanted to get a contract extension, and I was told they wanted a large contract extension. And from what I was understanding, obviously the Pistons weren't willing to give that to him, and there's not many other teams that really thought that highly of him to give him that kind of contract either. So I think what actually, if this continues throughout the rest of the year, what actually could be great for him was I feel like you saw in the last offseason that his archetype of player was really starting to get devalued. These smaller guards who don't really play defense, who are just offensive scorers. You have to be so elite as a scorer off the ball and on ball to really be worthy of it. Like we saw Malik Monk, who I think is on a really good contract, basically be told, no one wants you. We don't even want your $18 million salary. It's just like, how? Like he's actually a good player. So I think Ivy being able to, this actually may help him very much so in the long run where it comes to teams valuing him. Because if he can prove that he can impact the team in this type of role and he's willing to buy into a role like this on a team that's first in the East, he can get a nice contract, and probably not the heavy contract he wanted, but he can get a safe, like secure contract, maybe from another team, maybe from the Pistons, but maybe from another team where he can go have that security and now be able to try to build upon that. And now in a few years, we can look back at it, and maybe if he does hit this ceiling that people think he can get to, he can look back at this and be like, this was the year that like kind of secured me, kind of gave me this foundation that I was able to build off of and then try, jump off of it later on. So I think this.
Yeah. He can play his way into a contract. He can play his way into that deal, and you bring high impact, high efficiency in a smaller role. It lets people kind of project more things that you can do like that, versus maybe getting exposed with too much touches or too much shots. So it's a great point there that it could end up working out for him that way. And on some of the ancillary guys, Holland, Sasser, Tobias, Karis LeVert, even Duncan Robinson. How are the shooters fitting in kind of around Cade? And is there any one of these guys that's really popping out this year or maybe long term that you think is really, going to be special?
Yeah. Okay. So with the side guys, it's like, okay, so Ron is untouchable. The front office isn't trading him. They absolutely love Ron. The defensive identity and foundation of the team of Ausar, Stu, and Ron, like those guys are not going anywhere. Like they just won't trade. I would be shocked if they would even entertain trading any of them, from what I've understood. Like teams have called about Ausar and they hang up the phone immediately. I assume if teams called and asked about Ron, they would do the same thing. So Ron has been, his numbers aren't looking great. Like if you looked at his just raw numbers from outside, you probably would think he is playing too great. But he's very good on the defensive end of the floor. Being able to go from Ausar to Ron is incredible. And they plan on eventually them two guys being able to play together for longer stretches. So Ron, I think, is fitting into a role off the bench. And, he's another guy who's able to come off the bench and randomly have like a 12-point outburst in like 14 minutes. Like he's one of those guys. Some nights he may have 2 points and not, really be seen offensively. But some nights he's just like a Tasmanian devil where he's like, all of a sudden he's around the ball nonstop. He's able to score. All of a sudden, you're like, how did he score that? How did he finish that? And it's, you look at the scoreboard, he has 12 points in 8 minutes. So he's able to do that, and they have a very high ceiling for him. They think very highly of Ron. So I think he's had a good second season. When it comes to Duncan, I think Duncan has been tremendous for them. He has been better, I think, than Malik Beasley. I think Malik Beasley provided more, obviously, 3-point shot. I mean, Beasley was getting up. I saw a throwback to on my memories, whatever, to last year, a few days ago. He got 19 threes up in a game one time with a Pistons. Like Duncan's not getting that volume up. So Malik was definitely a more aggressive 3-point shooter and better shooter last year. Like that's fair. But Duncan also is an elite shooter. Won't get up the same type of volume, but he's an elite shooter. Still provides the movement shooting. But also he provides a little bit more when it comes to playmaking. He provides more in getting downhill and finishing at the basket. I also think he's just a better team defender. Malik probably popped a little bit more at times on ball, but neither of them are good defenders. Duncan is at least more locked in as a team defender. So I think Duncan has been tremendous for them. During this 5-game skid I was talking about when their offense wasn't clicking as well, Duncan, I believe, was shooting like 30%. So I think that was the main reason. Duncan just wasn't hitting a lot of shots. And when you don't have a lot of 3-point shooters and you just rely really on one guy, when he goes cold, it's really going to impact the whole team. It's going to kill him. So outside of that stretch, I think Duncan has been absolutely fantastic. I thought his defense yesterday against the Knicks, some of the most locked in I've seen him defensively. There was one play that the Knicks ran some split action with his guy Duncan and Ausar guarding Jalen Brunson. Ausar obviously didn't want to switch; he wanted to stay on Brunson, so Duncan's guy ends up slipping and getting a free roll to the basket. They think they got a free roll. Paul Reed rotates from the strong side corner, which obviously leaves the strong side corner wide open. Maybe most nights you don't see Duncan make this rotation, but he was so locked in and quick with this rotation of then scramming over to that strong side corner, taking that pass away, and now the Pistons force a turnover. I was incredibly impressed with how locked in he was yesterday defensively. So I think he's been really good for the Pistons. So yeah, Ron, Duncan, Paul Reed, I talked about him. He was great. Marcus Sasser, I think, is in a tough position. I've said over and over, if I was Marcus Sasser, I'd ask for a trade. Because he is he is an older prospect. He's not one of these guys who are 21, 22, where it's like, oh yeah, I can wait till year 4 or 5 to finally get my chance. By then he's gonna be 26, 27. Like he doesn't have he doesn't want to be. This is his prime right now. Like he needs to be playing something. Like if I'm Sasser, I feel like I'm a good player. I'm a really good scorer. Like I'm not 22. I'm already 25. I'd like to start playing. And when he has played, I mean, like I said, just 2 nights ago, he scored like 20, 21 or something for the Pistons. He was incredible for them. And then he goes from that, and then two games later, he's out the rotation. So if I was him, I'd want out. But from him as an individual player, yeah, I think he's a very, very good scorer, very, very good shot creator, crazy handle, very confident, incredible touch at the rim and floater range. I compared him to Peyton Pritchard a ton as an offensive player. I think he's a very good scorer, and if he was put in the right situation, he could pop as an off the bench microwave scorer easily. But I really question his future with the Pistons. He's really fought to try to be a consistent mainstay in the rotation. No matter what he does, it seems like it just isn't going to happen. So I feel bad for him, to be honest. But I think he's a pretty good player. And then Tobias, you brought him up. Not good. Not. I think it's.
Oh no.
I think it might be. It might be time. I think it might be time for the Pistons to try to start looking for a replacement.
Oh wow, there it is. From like the better than Paul George replacement memes to this.
I mean, look, Tobias. Sorry about that. My alarm went off. Tobias
big news that Tobias is on the trade block. You know, they had to let us know.
So Tobias wants to retire here, and the Pistons would love to have him retire here. Like if they could find a way to have him retire here, extend him to a contract this offseason and still be able to get a replacement without having to move him, that'd be great because he is incredible in the locker room. He wants to be in Detroit. He loves it here. Everyone likes Tobias the person. He's a great guy.
Ultimate professional type of basketball guy everywhere he goes.
It's not that he's just become like trash. He still has value. Like he's incredible in his mismatch post-ups, attacking those. When he gets in between or under 15 feet, it feels like he's automatic. Like he still provides a punch offensively. But for this team, they desperately need a high-volume three-point shooter at the 4 position, and they need someone better defensively than him at this point. He's a year older. I mean, this is fair. I mean, he's getting older. Not everyone's LeBron and can play till 40. So he's not as good defensively anymore. And offensively, he's just not a willing three-point shooter. This is what I've said on the podcast a few times, is that when Tobias gets the ball at the three-point line above the break, he's shooting 31% above the break threes, by the way, just not good enough. But when he gets the ball above the break, he catches the ball, and it's like, I guess I have to take this three. I guess they need, this is my role now. I have to be able to do this. The Pistons don't need that guy. The Pistons need a guy that, if there's even this much space, they're grinning ear to ear like, oh my God, I can't believe you just gave me the space. I'm letting it go. Like, even if you give me this space, I'm incredibly excited. You shouldn't have done this. And they're just letting it fly. That's what they need. They don't need a guy that when they're wide open, they're like, I guess I got to take this. Like,
that's Ryan Anderson when you need him.
Right, exactly. That's what they need. And Tobias has never been that high-volume three-point shooter. That's never been his game. So when you have this slippage defensively and you have this, like, very massive, obvious like need for a spacer at the 4, it kind of just pops when he's on the floor. And again, he still provides some offensive punch in certain areas. I think he would be really good off the bench. But like according to Data Baller, the Pistons are 7.9 points better with him on the floor. I think he's one of the only guys who has that big of a drastic on off for the Pistons. And if you look at like him with all the main duos, like with him and Cade, it's like a massive difference. When Cade plays without Tobias, he's plus 12.5. When he plays with Tobias, it drops to 3.9. And Tobias without Cade is minus 7.3. You do it with Ausar, it's the exact same thing. Ausar without Tobias, plus 17. When he plays with Tobias, it goes all the way down to plus 5. Like it's massive swings now. You go with Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren, when he plays with Ausar or with Tobias, it's plus 6.2. Without Tobias, it's plus 12. So it's like these massive swings now that is kind of backing up the eye test for this year, that Tobias, while still valuable in the locker room and still provides something offensively, is obviously just another year older. He's gotten a little worse defensively, and he's not the best fit for what the Pistons need right now.
Yeah, I think that sums it up best there, especially just not quite fitting in while still being, a capable scorer, just not quite fitting in with exactly the way the Pistons are trying to play, and not necessarily good enough to make up for that fact. It seems like, where maybe the scoring, if the scoring was on another level, or like 20 a game, or the 3-point shooting was like quick trigger, like you're saying, or just a little more ready-made to fire and adjusting his game to fit maybe a little more, I think is what you would want. Because that type of archetype, and I think that's kind of been following Tobias around his career, is that he's good enough of a scorer and shooter, and always has been, to earn the contract that he gets. And then it becomes, if he's not quite star level offensive impact, how do you build the two-way lineup around that skill set with it, while still paying that much money for that skill set? And normally that kind of goes to a star level impact that you're kind of making up for maybe a little bit lack of defense and ball stoppingness. But Tobias has, I thought, found a good role. Maybe it was the last few years, versus maybe it's just a little bit more regression now, is kind of what it sounds like for him.
I would say Tobias is still viable. He still does, like you said, he's still a good scorer. Like if he gets his possession to go post up, it feels like he scores every time. If he gets anywhere in the mid range, he has incredible touch. He still gets to the rim. Like it's not. I don't feel like he's lost athleticism. I don't think he's
okay.
I don't feel like he's worse as a scorer in any of the areas that he's always been good at. Like he's still very good in those areas. That's why I think if he came off the bench and was like the scoring punch for them in the bench lineup, he still would be incredibly valuable. It's just that, especially with how teams are guarding Duren now, knowing he's like this other, and how the Pistons are going to Duren more as the secondary scorer rather than Tobias last year. Like last year, Tobias was that second scorer. He was getting all those touches, and he was more valuable. Now he's kind of being used as this off-ball guy, and he can do it somewhat, but like he naturally drifts towards the paint. He always cuts, maybe when you don't really want him to cut because you have Ausar for that. You need a guy who just wants to be at the three-point line, wants to shoot threes, and that's just never been his game. So, and I do think last year for the Pistons, he was much better defensively than people think. Like he guarded Cat the entire playoff series. I thought he did a great job. Like it was probably one of his best defensive seasons he's had in like the last 5 years. So like that combined with him having a little slippage defensively as he gets a year older, and maybe just not the best fit with what this team needs in the starting lineup now compared to last year. I think it's more so that. I don't think he's washed. I don't think he's not good anymore. It's just, I think it's more that than anything.
Yeah, and maybe taking some of the same spots on the floor as a Duren or a Ausar Thompson, like you're saying, are now, and like if you're using the ball on the ball with those guys a little more, and you need more of an off-ball shooter, that's not necessarily Tobias's first elite trait as much as the on-ball scoring, even though he can do it. So that does seem like a prime type of trade piece. Maybe if like we've been doing, if you're building out from Cade getting downhill and Duren and Ausar getting downhill, you just need more guys outside to space the floor for them, and there's just a certain pecking order that builds out of that naturally. So I could totally see Tobias still helping a team in the right role, even maybe this team. Like there's always a case that having a different type of scorer, especially off the bench, like you're saying, could be valuable in the playoffs for when it's slowing down and you just need a bucket, and Tobias is that guy. Speaking of the playoffs, you mentioned the matchup with Cat last year, him guarding Cat all year. We just got a little preview of Knicks Pistons last night. Obviously Pistons, wiped the floor with them in this one. The Knicks got took the series last year and knocked them out. What difference do you think this team is ready to make in a potential, playoff series, possibly facing the exact same team with the same type of stakes attached, but now they have a little more playoff experience against this team, which is really underrated when it comes to just showing up to the moment and not being afraid of it. And one last little tidbit on you touched on Duncan Robinson, his experience with the Heat, maybe that finals run, that playoff experience. Maybe you mentioned his defensive rotation. Maybe that's just something, a little benefit of the Heat culture years. It's like, this game means something. Be in the right spots and don't make any mistakes. And to your point, Duncan just does a little bit more of everything than, say, a more of a off-ball shooter like Malik Beasley, where you're getting a little more of that dribble drive, connective type of offensive piece there. So, that's one example. But, what are some of the big differences this team when the playoffs come around?
Yeah, I think a few of the differences. One, Isaiah Stewart's here. Like last year, he wasn't in the playoffs. He got hurt immediately in game one, just wasn't there. I think there's a lot of people in the Pistons organization, and there's a lot of people in the locker room that think if Stu was healthy, they think they win that series. And people may disagree, but I know that that's how a lot of people within the Pistons believe. And you saw yesterday, Stu absolutely locked down Cat. He had nothing for him. He didn't want to play. He didn't want to go against him. He didn't even get shots up. Like, I think he only got 4 shots in this game yesterday. Like, he couldn't even do anything. He couldn't even get a shot up.
Yeah, Brunson was getting his midi pull-ups, I was going to say, and to that point, like the Knicks, Cat had 2 shots at halftime as Brunson was trying to keep up with the Pistons, going 1 shot at a time, and it's like the Pistons will just outwork you at that point.
Yeah. So Stu, I think having Stu is like one of the biggest differences. They think that he is a massive difference maker, and honestly, if they had Stu last year, I think you would have saw more Stu than Duren, because I feel like it was just that type of series where Stu would have matched up much better. So that's
and he deters Cat from shooting, kind of just by being out there, in a sense, is what
exactly.
You're getting at.
And JB talked about this at practice. He's talked about this after the playoff series multiple times. I talked about it after the series as well. In the playoff series, the reason why they went with Tobias so much on Cat is just Duren struggles with perimeter bigs. And I went through and counted each one of Cat's threes in the playoffs last year against the Pistons. I believe 11 of those 15 were against Duren not being there on the catch. And JB emphasized how important it was to be there on the catch against Cat, because getting there with a late contest, getting there with a late hand, Cat's one of the best shooters. If you're not there on the catch, he's just letting it go. He also has a quick release. He has a high release. Like, he's just going to let it go, and it's probably going to go in. If you can be there on the catch, it really frustrates him. You'll take away the pull-up 3, and then you force him to dribble drive where he's not the greatest passer, and you got rangy athletes that can swipe down at the nail in gaps. It really frustrates him, and that's exactly what they did yesterday. Paul Reed and Stu both were just at all times there on the catch against Cat, and he just wasn't able to do anything. He didn't get any threes up. He couldn't do anything. So I think that's a big difference. Second thing is that I think last year going into the playoffs, I said that one of the areas I thought the Pistons could try to like pinch the Knicks a lot was using Duren's aggressiveness as a driver against Cat. Cat's not a good defender. He fouls a ton in the playoffs. If Duren could really make Cat work, I feel like that's something they could have taken advantage of, but they didn't go to it at all in the playoffs. It doesn't feel like Duren was maybe ready at that point. It was just flashes at that point. It's nowhere near what it is now. I feel like if these teams met in the playoffs, Stu would play so well defense against Cat like we saw. I think he would really frustrate him. And then on the other end, I think Duren would really frustrate him as well, trying to guard him. I think he would really struggle against that, especially with how good Duren's got as a driver, as a scorer himself. So I think those 2 areas right there would be the massive differences for the Pistons, along with Cade just being a way better basketball player this year than he was last year. And then obviously, like you mentioned, the playoff experience I think would really help him too. Like last year was everyone's first playoff experience of this core. Going into it again this year, I think they would be better, more ready. I think they would obviously be more experienced. They wouldn't be I don't feel like they were really shy from the moment last year as much, more so just you're inexperienced. Some possessions you may not, not understand that every possession matters that much more. So I think experience, but mainly the duo of Stu and Duren, I think really will be like a big, even Paul Reed if they want to play him, but like that I think is where the Pistons win. I think that's what made them win or really helped them dominate them yesterday. I think that's what would help them win the series against the Knicks if they matched up in the playoffs.
Yeah, they really counter what the Knicks do for all those reasons a lot. I know what came to mind also was Karl Anthony Towns. A similar issue he had was against Aaron Gordon, to your point. in the Denver series back when the Nuggets won it all on their championship run. They used Aaron Gordon on Cat, and one of AG's best, his two best defensive series were when they used him on tall jump shooting forwards like Durant and Cat. And to your point, just getting up underneath them and making it hard for them to dribble and drive because it's not necessarily their go-to move. They want to just quick catch and shoot or shoot over you or whatever it may be. That's not their go-to move. So just taking away what they want to do first is a big one. And to your point, just having that defensive personnel, multiple bodies full of energy and full of elite defense to throw at a guy like Cat and kind of like neuter that right away and then turn it into like a one-on-one with Brunson, that's a good way to win no matter how great Brunson is and has been as a legit scoring creator. But when you're going 1-on-5 with a team like that, it can be tough. When you've seen it up close, do you think for all those reasons, I think the Pistons match up well. Do you think some of the Knicks defenders give Cade any trouble here? We got OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges and Deuce McBride, just nothing.
Yeah, I don't think any of them really bother Cade anymore. Like,
yeah,
he's always killed Mikal. Like, even that matchup, I saw something the other day. I forget what the numbers were, but always Mikal has never been able to deal with him. I think it's more so due to Cade's strength and ability to just bump him off and get to that like mid-range jumper. Mikal's never been able to really guard him. It's OG that gives him the most trouble. And last year in the playoffs at that point, he really gave Cade a lot of trouble. So OG would be the best matchup. However, as the Knicks saw yesterday, and as I talked about in the podcast yesterday, this is not the same Cade as last year. He is infinitely better than he was last year, and he tormented OG yesterday. He's stronger now. He can bump off of OG. The Knicks consistently giving him these hedge gap threes that they gave him last year in the playoffs, where Cade went, I think, like 1 of 12 on those in the playoff series, and I think it's 0 of 8 in the final game of the series, where they showed and recovered, and that opens up the hedge gap threes, and Cade just couldn't make them pay. He's shooting like 35% pull-up threes, 36% pull-up threes this year. He's killing them with that, and he did that yesterday. He's strong enough to get to the rim. He's a better finisher this year. He draws fouls more. He's more crafty to deal with physical defenders. He'll get you into foul trouble. He's a better post-up player. He can score in that area. He is so much. And also, the Knicks last year, a lot of their scheme in the playoffs was to trap Cade. They just trapped him and said, someone else make a play. In games 5 and 6, Duren and Ausar were making them pay. You didn't see as much traps yesterday against the Pistons. Problem with that is, Cade's one of the best isolation players in the league this year. Last year, he was not. He's never, throughout his career, he hasn't been a great isolation scorer. He's always been a pick and roll guy. And a lot of people outside Detroit who don't like Cade used to call him, or still probably call him, a pick and roll merchant. Well, that's not the case this year. He does run a lot of screens. That is true. He still loves running pick and roll. But now he's just able to kill you in isolation now. Like this year, he's scoring 1.04 points per possession in isolation. He's 74th percentile. He just kills team. If you trap, the Pistons have a good enough players off the ball that can make you pay, cutting to the basket, finishing at the rim. If you switch, he kills you in isolation. If you just want to go one-on-one with him and OG, you'll kill him in isolation as well. There's too many areas in which Cade can kill a team now with his improvements that I don't think there's many players in the league that really bother him at this point now. I'll say this as well. If Cade was shooting normal percentages on his open catch and shoot threes, throughout his career, he's always been a very good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. This year, to start the year, I think he was shooting like 9% in the first like 20 or so games, so it tanked it. If he was shooting his normal like 30, even just 30, 31%, historically he's been closer to 40%. But let's just say if he was at 30%, we'd be looking at like 60 true shooting right now. Like he would be scoring. He's improved in every other area. He just started off cold as ever on catch and shoot threes. He's having his most efficient season of his career. He's almost, it feels like, unguardable offensively now. And just to correct myself, he's shooting nearly 37% now in off the dribble threes. So he's tough to guard, man.
Man, I mean, if his 3-point shot is going along with his downhill, his pick and roll creation, he's, like you said, the decel game and just getting to the rim in any spot and any shot he wants, like already a complete kind of package when it comes to an offensive engine, and just continues to round out his game. And it's definitely cool to see a guy like him get kind of this full circle moment where he went through that losing streak where like he had the kind of a famous press conference moment, didn't and was like, man, we've lost that many games. He didn't even realize to like now this.
He was like, there's no way we're that bad. And then he looks down at the paper. He's like 2-20, like not 28 bad. There's no way. Like,
no way. That can't be that bad. And now it's fully flipped. 27-9, first in the East, second best overall, third best point differential. We touched on in this game, as you said, like the Knicks had nothing for him. 29 points, 13 assists to 5 turnovers, 2 blocks and a steal, 8 of 13 from 2, 3 of 4 from 3. So if the season ended today, I think he's eligible and would be fully like a great nomination for just about any award. So that's what I'm asking you. If the season ended today, he's already clear-cut all-star, I believe, for the second time. But, he's rated, just to put it in perspective, his 6 overall EPM impact rating, right there with all the other MVP candidates that you're thinking of. And 15th overall on offense is kind of what keeps him up there. But sneakily, being so positive on defense is really what separates him as a two-way player, where Giannis, Shea, and Cade are really the only top 15 players on this metric who are still healthy, if I'm looking at it right, that are top 15 on offense and also like a full point positive on defense. All the others are generally negative on defense. So just goes to show that like his two-way team impact is a part of this as well, that he's not just doing it as the offensive engine. He's also a positive team defender, like a Shea being a part of that elite Thunder defense as well. So it's not just one-way impact, which just I think is important to, like, when it comes to these discussions, that it's not just on one side of the floor. He's helping both sides here, and the team doesn't have to cover him up. So when it comes to, people get bogged down on the word value, they get bogged down on the best player, but, NBA MVP odds, he's sitting at third overall odds right now. I believe Jokic is projected to probably not have enough games. I would imagine why he's not here anymore. Also, clutch player of the year, Cade Cunningham is the favorite for that award as well. So we know he's an all-star, but All-NBA MVP, what should award voters really be thinking about when it comes to Cade's case for these awards this year?
Yeah, real quickly on the clutch part, that's like if you go and look at Cade's numbers in the fourth quarter in the clutch last year compared to this year, he's like 5,000 times better. That was one of the biggest complaints from Pistons fans, was they wanted to see him become this killer in the clutch and deliver the moments. And he didn't play well last year in the fourth quarter. He didn't play well last year in clutch situations. And him and Trajan Langdon both talked about immediately after in their exit interviews at the practice facility. They both talked about how they felt like it was his conditioning and that he was going to spend all offseason getting his conditioning better to where he didn't gas out at the end of games. And Trajan, not just then, but literally at any point you talk to him throughout the offseason, continued to say every moment, yeah, Cade, we're really on him about working on this conditioning. We're really on him about working on this. And you see it coming through this year. I mean, in the fourth quarter this year, he's scoring 8 points a game on 62 true shooting this year. Last year, 6 points a game on 52 true shooting. Like, infinitely better player in the fourth quarter. In clutch situations, he's scoring 5 points a game on 60 true shooting. Last year in clutch situation, 2 points on 51 true shooting. He's when I tell you that he's made leaps in every part of his game, he absolutely has. I mean, he went from probably one of the worst like star players when it came to clutch situations to potentially being the clutch player of the year this year. Like he's made crazy improvements. So just in that regard, I had to point that out, because it's man, watching him improve and watching him from his rookie year and watching all of this, it's just been it hits different when it's like you can trade for a team, and I'm not saying that's like you can't do, like you can, and we've seen teams, even the Pistons in 04, like a lot of those guys were traded for. None of them were homegrown prospects, but seeing like a homegrown guy, and you remember his struggles when he was a rookie year, and you remember seeing like the developments, it just hits different. It's crazy.
Absolutely. That's like probably one of my favorite things about sports, and just being a fan of sports is seeing that natural development, and actually get to see the full circle, where it's more rare now when guys are just swapping teams so often that if you're a fan of a team or a city, which is what sports is for a lot of people, you want to see the guys grow from them as a prospect, as the rookie that your team drafted, and grow and fulfill the potential of that pick that doesn't really happen that often.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then to what everything else you were mentioning about the awards, I do want to say, Spreadsheet FC. There was a lot of hate on Cade for years from Spreadsheet FC, and I have at the beginning of the year, the first week when Cade was shooting I think his true shooting the first week of the season was like 52%. He always gets off to slow starts. There's a few tweets from Spreadsheet FC about I'm supposed to believe this guy. Look at his EPM, blah blah. And now his EPM, like you mentioned, he's a top 10 player. I think he's, like you mentioned, 6th or 7th in EPM right now. I don't see a lot of tweets from Spreadsheet FC no more. And it's not just that. I believe his 2-year RAPM is like or 2-year LeBron, whatever. I forget which stat it is. I believe he's 19th now in that. So he's conquering Spreadsheet FC. I haven't seen a lot of people talking from over there.
This conversation feels way too familiar for Paulo and the way he's talked about too down around Orlando. So I'm hoping we see some similar developments in just the efficiency, the clutch, and the impact, because it just feels like some things do have to do with the individual player and where they're at in development, and other things have to do with the context of the team and who's surrounding him and what the goals are and everything. All these different things we hit on. So it's cool to see everything merge at once, kind of here for Cade.
Definitely. I think he can finish top 3 in MVP because of, like you said, with Jokic probably not being eligible after this injury. I think it's SGA's to lose. I think he'll finish top 3 in MVP. If he does, that would be absolutely insane. I think he's going to be an all-NBA first-team guy. Last year, he was third team. I think he'll be a first team this year. I think he'll be an all-star starter for the first time in his career. I think he might win Clutch Player of the Year. I think this is going to be – I mean, last year was somewhat of his coming-out party. I think this year is really going to be the year that he truly solidifies himself as a face of the NBA. Not the face, but a face of the NBA, and puts himself in the argument for the best American-born player in the league. I think right now it's probably him or Ant. I think that's who you – I mean, Steph probably maybe still, but, that's the argument. I think this is really going to be Cade's coming out party this year. He's going to win. He's going to get a lot of awards and a lot of hardware, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, absolutely. A few other names in the MVP race now. I mean, some outside looking in. Kawhi is on this insane streak.
Man, Jesus, he's been incredible.
Yeah, he's been nuclear ever since he came back. And Edwards is finishing a lot better and playing pretty great. Maxi's been nuclear to start the year. Sixers didn't expect them, and it's just kind of Jalen Brunson's Knicks and Jaylen Brown doing everything, kind of stepping up for Boston and still having success there. But and then Luka with the scoring. But yeah, I kind of agree that after Shea, I really do think Cade is right there. Definitely has as good of a case as anyone. I mean, we're talking about an offensive engine for the number 1 team, putting up all NBA level numbers, plus defender, and he's improved every year in some fashion. Jaylen Brown also has a little bit of that. He gets a lot of criticism, but he's also developed every year, and he deserves his flowers for showing off what he's doing in this team too. But just in terms of the award and all that, I think, yeah, Cade really does have like a top 2, top 3 case at this point with everything going on. And if everything holds, and you're looking at number 1 team in the East with top 3 point differential and all these things, like, they got to credit Cade somewhere. So all NBA for his team, it might not be a lock, but feels pretty dang close. And I do like the way you put it, just kind of all around wherever it finishes in the award voting. And ideally, some more playoff success as well. This kind of anoints Cade in a way this season as what could be his one of his first East seasons that really define a part of his career, with how wide open the East is and how successful the Pistons kind of have been continually building this. Just, we've seen the Cavs and the Knicks kind of reach this plateau of sense. They're now sitting atop the East, but the Pistons are right there with them now. And, we'll see if the Magic can kind of swing back in that direction here after the injuries, but the Pistons are actually doing it, and they have been all year, and they've been an absolute machine. Like, they know who they are offensively outside of Cade, and they have a defensive culture kind of to fall back on. Like, this is a real team, and, the traits of a contender for sure, top 12 on both sides of the ball. I'll just end it with this. Where do you think the vibes and expectations are at for this squad right now?
I think the expectations are a little different from the front office to the fan base. I think the fan base is wanting to see them make a move and try to go for the finals because of how open the East is right now. So I think that's where the fans are at. I think the front office is at, they will take just a slight improvement from last year, even if it means just one playoff series win and losing the second round. I think a lot of fans would probably be upset with that. I don't think the front office would be. And honestly, the front office didn't expect them to be this good this year. So everything happening this year, it's kind of like last year. They didn't expect them to be that good last year, so they didn't really make any crazy moves and just accepted, hey, first round lose, hey, that's a big improvement. Whatever happens this year, I feel like the expectations are higher from the fan base than they are the front office right now. And so I think, like I said, I think a lot of fans think they could get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the front office just wants to see them improve upon last year and don't really need them or expect them to get to the finals or Eastern Conference Finals. If it happens, they'll be happy about it, but I don't think the front office is there yet. But maybe the next month changes. We'll see how they attack the deadline.
Yeah, a natural clash of the long-term thinkers of the front office versus the win-now hungry fans that have been waiting 20 years to see these Pistons start contending again, you know.
The Detroit sports community has been scarred by that, the long-term thing. I mean, the Tigers last year, everyone wanted to make a move. They didn't. They absolutely fall apart in historic fashion. Now they don't know. The Lions, everyone begged them to make some moves. Go get a pass rusher, all this. It was long-term moves. Now they're out the playoffs. It was our only shot, quote, going around everywhere. It's just, they're really scarred by the long-term thinking of Detroit GMs.
And just throwing our GM hat on here after this conversation, would you say that the move would be kind of for a stretch four Tobias replacement, maybe throwing in Sasser has a little bit of prospect value and maybe doesn't quite, fit exactly the defensive culture being built here, but also as a wild card scorer? Are those kind of the two names you would kind of pencil as maybe there's an upgrade here and there's so much depth, maybe, some off the third string as well? Is that kind of all you would kind of think they're looking for on the trade deadline, if anything?
Yeah, I can confirm that that is what they're. If they do make a trade, they are looking for another shooter, another scorer type within the half court. If they could get a 4, I think that would be the best case scenario. I've said, I'm going to continue to say this until the deadline passes or he gets traded somewhere else. They need to get MPJ. I think MPJ would be absolutely perfect with what they do. I think if they get MPJ, they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals and could come out the East. He is exactly what they need within the half court. He would be phenomenal. They would, and the defensive structure that they have, plus the limited defense, I do think he can provide. He's a better rebounder than Tobias. I think he's a better weak side protector at the rim than Tobias as well. I'm not going to say you're going to act like that MPJ is some great defender, but he was just a part of the number one defense in the league in the month of December because he's able to contribute something. Yeah. And then offensively, that whole volume 3-point shooter I was talking about, and I could see him getting 10 threes up for the pit. He would get so many threes opportunities with how teams guard. I think he's perfect. So that's where I'm at with it. But I know his value is probably crazy high right now, and the Pistons may not want to go after that.
Right. Yeah, could see the value being an issue, but definitely like the idea of his just kind of a more mobility and agility, that agile, the help side defense, and kind of the 3-point off ball movement shooting and quick trigger off of Cade, and can rely on that scoring for high volume when he's the only one on the court, or just scale to off ball motion shooting, nonstop floor stretching threat off of all these other downhill guys. So definitely like that shout as well. And I guess it's a little too late for Ryan Anderson, but we got to give him a shout either way to Rhino here for really, really helping popularize the stretch four at one point. I don't know. He's on my mind today, so shout out Rhino. But man, the Pistons are for real. I'm excited to see how far they go. I really love the way they built this team, kind of as we're hitting on just organic team building, good process, trusting moves to build a team defensive culture and kind of really, really empower your star player and give Cade everything he needs to succeed finally, after kind of a few years of rolling the dice on different prospects, it felt like, and finally just, hammering home a few big hits and building out from there, because like we've hit on, it's not just Cade, although he's great, Ausar Thompson, defensive anchor type guy, Jalen Duren, really dynamic handoff hub, downhill big that just is a really rare combination. So, you have that defense and scoring and shot creation on lock. Now finding some 3-point floor stretchers and who can keep the ball moving seems like, there's always one more piece to any team's puzzle, but that seems like the next frontier. So we'll see if they make the move there. Definitely excited to see how far they go. I think they really could push for some of the awards, and wide open East, you never know. They're playing as well as anybody. So good luck the rest of the way to the Pistons and to you covering them, man. Hope it's a fun season.
Appreciate
Thanks.
you, man.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time today, Ku. Have a good one. Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.